My question for you would be the one that I keep getting from everybody here. It's a question that I love, but that I don't know how to answer. And I said at some point that I think maybe you and Barry have thought about it more, which is, what do you think in terms of psychoanalysis works one by one? You know, it helps you encounter the lack, the nothing, these different experiences in yourself. And obviously you are trying to do this on a larger scale. And psychoanalysis worries about that for precisely the reasons that we're talking about. Like, does this end up prescriptive? Does this end up like creating a group that coheres, but there's somehow an enemy somewhere in the distance that we're beginning to define ourselves against? And I don't know, how do you think of that, and how do you run up against it in the work that you do?
You know, funny, and Anna, we've had a discussion about this. I'm going to mention, if that's okay, AA. Just briefly, we talked about this, because I think about communities can coalesce around a shared set of beliefs, shared set of practices, and generally a shared enemy, scapegoating mechanism that we've talked about. A type of community that I think kind of can maybe coalesce around a shared lack are kind of AA communities. An example that you coalesce not around a shared set of beliefs, but a shared loss. And so for me, communion is a meal around a shared loss, the death of God, the loss of God. This is communion. And Burning Man is an example, before it got all woo-woo, of like but still, you know, I think what made it so important, I think it started because a guy broke up with somebody and he couldn't get over it. He was fixated, and then they went down, they burned an effigy, and this burning, this destructive event was cathartic, and then it grew and it grew, and it's now Burning Man. And in Burning Man, one of the central things is they burn the man, and they also burn a temple, where people put stuff into the temple and then they burn the temple. What is it to have a communion, not a community, but a communion, gathered together around a shared loss? And there's a certain shape to that loss, but a certain respect and shape of that loss. How long does it last? I think the Quakers have been pretty good at it. But maybe by definition, it always fails. Icon had 5 principles. Icon was iconic, apocalyptic, emerging, heretical, and failing. Got them, yeah, it was a long time ago, yeah. And failing was, you know, the 5th coordinate. It was an attempt to create a community in which we somehow tried to understand that there was a failure built within it. So I kind of think of it as like 2 ways. It's like there's what we're doing here, which is a concrete community, which will ultimately, if it's successful, will be a failure. But then there is just the dialectic process itself, which will always find a way. And in every generation, we have to find a way to try to create a community or a communion of the lack.